far away from a hospital which can treat him medically. So he's at his daughter's place. Indicated he'll probably be there for a month minimum before he comes back to Denny if it gets the tick. So they don't know what's caused it, but it's very serious. So,
It's cool.
Someone like to move?
Mr. Mayor, just before we move that, look, I'd just like to ask for leave of absence for approximately half an hour during the meeting. We've got a special presentation happening at Interreach today for a long-serving member of the staff, and I'd like to be present for that
Let us know
presentation.
when you need to go.
So about 20 past 10 until about 10 to 11.
Yep, okay.
Thank you.
Someone like to move the apologies please received with Councillor McCrabb, seconded by Councillor Betts. Any questions or comments? All those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 6 is confirmation of our June meeting. Those minutes have been received. Someone like to move that be received? Councillor McCrabb and Councillor Bull. Any questions on those? All those in favour?
Aye.
Yes, carried. No any disclosure of interest need to be put with Nicole, and welcome Nicole.
Sorry, I'm really behind here.
We'll look up. Yeah. There's no mayoral minutes. Reports.
Mr. Mayor, if I can, I'll just ask to pause while we catch up.
Just one sec, sorry,
Am I going too quick?
I'm having trouble with this.
Wallace has got an E on it, by the way.
Oh, that was me, yeah. Seconded.
Councillor Bull. Oh, sorry,
Betts.
Councillor Betts.
Oh my
That's okay.
And the crab is.
I'll fix it all up later, sorry.
Just down there, right?
Yeah.
Information minutes is Councillor McCrabb, Councillor Bull.
Okay, my apologies.
Moved and seconded the minutes. Yes, we've done that. Councillor McCrabb, Councillor Bull. Any questions on it? All those in favour?
Aye.
Item 10.1 is the mayor.
Mr. Mayor, standard monthly report outlining the meetings that have been attended to by the Mayor, councillors and the General Manager. It's a routine report.
Someone like to move the recommendation that reports be Councillor Fogarty, Councillor Metcalfe. Any questions on those meetings that people have gone to? All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Item 10.2 is resolutions of council.
Still, Mr. Mayor, monthly report to outline the progress of resolutions of the council. Note as an additional item which we thought might be of value to councillors, putting there around the total resolutions for 2021 and the number that have been closed in that time, and we'll continue to update those figures.
Thank you, Phil. Recommendations here, we note the resolutions of council. I'd like to move those. Councillor McCrabb, seconded by Councillor Fogarty. Any questions on those resolutions? Comments? All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. 10.3, the investment and reserves report.
We'd just like to welcome Renee to the meeting, and Renee will be acting finance manager with the resignation of Amanda.
Well done, Renee.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As is required of us every month, we are supposed to present the investment and reserves report. So I present the report for the month ending 30th of June 2021 for councillors to note and receive that the investments totaled 46,791,852. this includes the day-to-day cash for operations. The second note is on interest received for the month of June. It was 18,405, and to note that of that figure, 14,000 was because of the special arrangement that we have entered into with Imperial. Number 3 is to note that the accrued interest that has not yet been received was 135,752. And also to note that there is a certificate of the responsible accounting officer and for council to adopt this investment report. There are 2 issues to highlight. One of them is that the report is preliminary, pending finalization of the financial year end process. And also there's a small breach that we had in National Bank Australia. We are supposed to have 40%. We are slightly on 42%, which translates to 783,000. This is only temporary until the 26th of July. It's going to come back to normal. I think in the month of July, we have got about 4.5 million that is due to mature from NAB. So that will come back quickly to snap back to the right limits. That is the report for June.
Happy to move that, Mr. Mayor.
Moved by councillor McCrab, seconded. Councillor McAllister, any questions or comments?
Yeah, I just like to make comment regarding the Imperium report. I think it's a very comprehensive report. Just want to question how often we're going to get that sort of report.
Monthly.
It is a monthly
Yes.
report. And the investment, the income of 14,800, is that for 2 months?
There's a bit of, on the 24th of May, only 3.7, but the rest of it is for June.
And we're paying how much to Imperium? 12,000?
Yeah.
So to me, it's, you know, there were questions a couple of months ago regarding the decision to go down this line, and I think that well and truly highlights the value of engaging someone like Imperium, and you can see that the benefit in interest rates that they can get that we as an individual council can't achieve. I think it's been well worth the investment.
Yeah, totally agree, councillor McCrab. I asked the same questions to the general manager about what's the cost versus the reward, and gets the ticks left, right and south. Any other questions or comments?
No. Councillor McCrab's covered my question. Thank you. I think he covered all our questions.
We have a mover a second.
Councillor
Yes,
McCrab,
exactly right.
That was the one up there.
So any other, no questions obviously then? All those in favour?
Aye.
Against, carried. Item 10.4. 2021 estimated carry forward capital and operating expenses.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's mine again. So this report is just to inform councillors and the mayor the potential of carried forwards. At the time that we prepared this report, the figure we were expecting is an estimate 10.8 million, made up of 10.4 on capital and 400,000 operational. This figure is very fluid because at that point we hadn't processed, I think, another batch of payments that we did on the 9th of July. So we expect the numbers to change. The actual report and actual numbers will be presented to councillors via the September QBRS. So this is just for your information that's coming up. Thank you.
Thank you. The report is there. Look, got a move in a second. Moved by councillor Betts, seconded by councillor McCrab. Questions or comments?
Just one question through you, Mr. Mayor. Is that a large figure compared to previous years?
I think last year was 11 million.
Yeah, so it's pretty standard.
Yeah.
Councillor McAllister?
No, it's just
Just waving in the breeze, right? Other questions, comments? Moved and seconded. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. 10.5. Thank you very much. Development Services Report.
Delegation.
There we are.
So this is more an administrative process. The current delegations just has our interim general manager, John Rayner, as the general manager. So we're just fixing up those titles. So we're just changing that to Philstone.
Right.
Good pick up by our new governance, senior governance officer.
Moved by Councillor McAllister, seconded by Councillor Bull. Any questions or comments? All those in favour? Against? Carried.
Just, Mr Mayor, just a procedural thing, just to maybe have a consideration for the sale yard strategic plan, maybe being brought forward as the member of the gallery here, that these other items might take a bit longer than. Well, that's up to you. I just thought it might be just worthwhile if
We can do that.
they might want to be not listening to all that.
Well, as it is, item 10.6 has been requested, and I've agreed to it, that we'll move to that item till after confidential counsel. So in its place, we can move the sale yards plan 10.9 as the next item to be addressed.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So the report provided to council following public exhibition period of the draft strategic sale, the sale yard strategic plan, as well as discussions that council has had with members of the community and different groups in that. So the report highlights the consultation undertaken and the outcomes from that process, including the exhibition, community survey, plus a community meeting. The report also looks at financial modelling around some scenarios of the operation of the sale yards based on the outcomes from council's last workshop. In summary, from the public exhibition, very strong sentiment from the community regarding keeping the sale yards operating in some way, shape or form, and working with the community groups in the community in developing it into the future. In terms of the financial modelling, there's sort of two sides of it and the questions that were asked. One is the operation of it. Is it a viable facility operationally? And in terms of just operationally running events, running sales there, it is viable just in terms of the sale itself. The other side of that is, does the facility generate enough income to cover depreciation, to cover future investment into the facility? The modelling that staff looked at showed that the facility wouldn't be able to generate enough income in and of itself to cover depreciation and future investment. So in terms of a council facility, it sort of changes that from a commercial entity to a community service. And there's a number of other areas with the services council provide that are similar to that. So in terms of the recommendations to council, it's to adopt the draft sale yards plan, and also to just confirm council's intentions around its original option, being option 4, divest and close the yards. Also recommendations regarding the leasing. As council's aware, the current lease is now up and we're in a periodic lease arrangement. Moving forward with the lease is dependent on council's strategic direction for the sale yards, and then also looking at future funding opportunities and a management plan for the facility. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Graham. The recommendations are there. Someone like to move the
Can I amend a recommendation or foreshadow a recommendation? Can I delete items 1 and 2 and replace those with the council defer the decision to divest and close the cattle yards for a period of 12 months? That's for the cattle yards. The council, then point 2 of that is to the council reform the users group to help council and a new leaseholder further improve the opportunities to improve the facility. And point 3 of that council allocate a $30,000 allocation for the scaling down of the cattle yards to a 3-run facility with an approximate 300 head capacity. And basically just for the new council to look at this in 12 months' time and work.
Yeah, if I can, Councillor Hall, do you have a written down version of that?
Scratchy.
That's fine.
It's basically like point 1 is the council defer the decision to divest and close the cattle yards for a period of 12 months. That would also not adopt the strategic plan as well for a period of 12 months.
So is your recommendation replacing all of those 7?
Well, no, I reckon the 3 from 3 down stay because they're fine.
Yeah.
But this is just to foreshadow 1 and 2, and that there's extra points that the council reform a users group to help council and a new leaseholder further improve opportunities to improve the facility. And that council allocate $30,000 for the scaling down of the cattle yards to a 3-run facility with an approximate 300 head capacity.
So where's the 30 grand coming from?
Well, we're going to define
We'll
it.
find it. I think we'll find it.
We've found it everywhere else, so we'll find it.
I'd be happy to second that motion,
I'll
Mr.
move it
Mayor.
anyway.
Moved by the amendments moved by councillor Hall, seconded by councillor Coffey. Any questions or comments?
Question regarding
Councillor Grab,
the cost to get the yards to,
compliance.
a work health and safety standard that's required.
No.
Is that
Yeah,
been-
sorry, through you, Mr Mayor, thanks, Councillor McGrath. So in regard to the WHS, as we've noted before, it's around the walkways. There's 2 sides of it, the gates and that, and inspections of it showing that whilst improvements in that area, the slam shut gates and that, the advice we've received previously from Safe Work as regard the overhead walkways, indicative costs for 3 sort of have 3 runs of that. That's around 400 metres. Repair upgrade to about 400 metres of overhead walkway, and to get that up to fully in line with the relevant Australian standard, we've estimated to be around about $200,000 to do that. Now it's that's as noted in the report there around how council would address that. That'd be something council would need to work with now Safe Work New South Wales regarding. Ultimately, the risk is back to council, and I have actually now found some information on advice that at the same time we've spoken before about in 2012 that the Deniliquin Council received the information from Safe Work, WorkCover. A number of other facilities had similar advice. It's funny that other facilities, they didn't note the walkways. There was more around the operation with gates and that, but the advice, also that advice to other councils and the same advice to Edward River Council is that Safe Work are there to notify of the issues. The council takes that on board. If there then is a future a future incident, it's then up to council to show how they managed the issue, especially after it had been notified of a concern in that area. So it's not they'll come in, Safe Work will come in and close the yards. That's a decision for council how it wants to manage the facility, as with every facility. But if there are issues, council needs to address them. So in the report, discussed there just around management plans, making sure that the lease addresses work health and safety and responsibilities. That needs to be strengthened within that lease. And then also that future investment and what council's plan is to address those issues that have been raised.
Thanks, Mark. Councillor McAllister.
Question to Councillor Hall on his resolution or amended resolution. Where did you get the 30 grand from?
Well, we're going to ask the general manager to have a look at.
No, where did you?
Oh, look, that was just a
Just pick it
basic,
out,
very
this-
basic, probably more aesthetics. We know that the issue around the walkway.
Aesthetic.
Well, yeah, because that's when we actually all went out and had a look at the yards.
Yeah, I know.
And they were actually in pretty good condition in the area where they wanted to use. So there's no issue with actually starting and using them as of probably tomorrow if they were cleaned up. And that's probably an oversight of the lease holder as well, that he needs to probably be brought into some actions there. But some general just maintenance in painting and a few general maintenance that the operation can be made fairly quickly and not with a substantial amount of money. That's just a figure that I propose, so that's totally up for debate.
Well, the amendment has been moved and seconded. Councillor Betts.
So excusing my ignorance on how it works, if the main issue is the walkways, how imperative are the walkways to the sales? And is there an alternative to the walkways to allow the continued use of Ash's suggestion of 3 yards to get cattle sales up and going and see how they go? Are the walkways imperative?
Well, from our discussions, that you can still use them.
Yeah.
They are, and they're exactly, there's other sale yards that are still operational with nearly same type of walkways. I think we're looking at trying to find extra funding in terms of grant money to further improve those runways and I think that's where council are showing their intent to fix the problem in maybe a short to long-term measure, but to actually keep the thing operational. Yeah, there is a risk, but there's a risk with everything, and I think it's a calculated risk that with signage and it's only the staff, it's not up for the public to go up on the walkway. So I think there's ways to manage the situation moving forward. End of the day, they've been there so many years.
Yeah. Thank you. In response to your question, Councillor Betts, in terms of the operation and what the resolution or the recommendation, sorry, there is at the moment, with a committee, a user committee, as with other facilities and that would be sort of one of the first agenda items in working with the users and of ways of operating and undertaking sales days. So council would bring into that discussion the WSU issues and around management plan moving forward, and then a bit of discussion with the users about, okay, that will work or not work. Once a sort of common ground and a way forward from that would then become a big basis of the future lease. Because in the scoping around the lease and what we would ask someone to price on would include how council intends the facility to run. So therefore incorporate what would come out of discussions from a user group. So unfortunately, at this point in a direct answer, we don't know. We need to discuss that further with the users to work that out.
Councillor McAllister.
So my biggest concern is the liability to council if anything ever happens to those people that are actually using it. So, I live on a farm and there's plenty of people around who got, you enter this farm at your own risk, blah, blah, blah. I just have difficulty when you're sitting here on behalf of council and the rest of the community to actually operate something that's not OH&S compliant or is a bit dodgy, okay? So somewhere along the line, the users who are going to use it, who are going to jump up there and sell cattle or whatever, you know, they need to, you know, declare that they're not going to, you know, sue the council for whatever, or you have signs up saying you entered this place at your own risk and you conduct your sales at your own risk.
Well, you need advice on.
Yeah, and that's, look, I'm just sitting here just saying, if they're not compliant, they shouldn't operate.
I think one of the key things that I say, I've got no problems with deferring the decision on what it might be, but what we're doing is we're operating on 9-year-old information. Now, has WorkSafe come up and told us, if you go down this path, this is what you need to do? Because then we're really going to find out what the dollar figures are. And then you can weigh it. Having, you know, 300 capacity and what, I've got no problems with that, but let's get some professional advice, take the emotion from both sides out of the equation and get the information that I believe council needs to get. That might take 12 months.
Well, that's what Ash is proposing.
I think let the council, let the cattle yard still remain operational. They're coming into the potentially a selling season that the agent said that they could improve the numbers and throughput. So that's, I think that we need to give that the opportunity. And they made it very clear after a period of time and it doesn't work, and we're not going to put significant dollars in. We're not going to spend millions. But if there's grants available, we might be able to look at those type of things, because we're probably going to have to get rid of the old yards and divest out of that at some stage. So there's OHS and there's WHS in everything. I think if the council did a full audit, we'd nearly shut the whole show. But it is a facility there. There's a general consensus in the community that they want to keep it going. And I think we should at least give that a chance for a period of time. I think there's a few things that we must make note of too, that our consultation was very poor at the start. I think we all acknowledge that. There's been very big oversights with the current leaseholder, the management of that. So I think we've got some responsibility around where everything is up to. And I know the old Deniliquid Council had no real strong interest in maintaining and moving those forward. So we can all hold our heads up and say, look, yeah, we need to, the decisions are made, that they're made good, bad or whatever. But I think there's an opportunity. There's certainly some strong sentiment from to get a users group going, and I think that the opportunity should be given to them to kind of move forward and see how it goes.
I've got no problems with 1, 2 and 3 of your amendments, Ash. In fact, I encourage them, but I think we need to get the correct advice for council to make a decision. And the correct advice is not the users group or whatever it might be. They're ancillary. What we need to do is get the people who make it compliant or not compliant, what do we need to do? And it hasn't been done for 9 years.
Maybe put a point forward that council initiated a full WHS audit on the. And look, if you're going to do that, you've got to do the whole facility.
Yeah, safeguards as well.
Sorry?
Not necessarily.
Let's focus on those 3
Okay.
roles.
Yeah, no, yeah.
I think
This
we're
is
getting
what
ready to check on
council
the other
might
stuff
want to do,
too.
and we just want to know what the implications are.
And I think, you know, through you, Mayor, that's a good idea, because, you know, it comes back to the responsibility we hold around this table, okay? And I don't like making decisions when I don't know the full breadth of what the decision's going to be. I was happy with the recommendation the way it was up there, because it had a process in front of it to work through it. But, you know, if you want to change 1, 2 or whatever 3, well, 1 and 2, you've got to go through what you're suggesting.
And look, liability, the council's got a $20 million public liability. Is it 20 or 40?
More than 20.
20 million. So that's covered, but
Yeah.
we need to make sure they can query council if we haven't ticked the boxes the right way.
Well, what if we
If
put
we're
a
gonna
point
keep it open-
for in that we have an audit of that?
Do you want
Okay.
to- I'm happy to support that as the second.
Sooner rather than later, and we need the report to move forward. In all fairness, Councillor McAllister, you were happy to go forward with a with a recommendation without all the information anyway.
But in that process there, they were going to be assessed. I was happy with it.
Mr Mayor, through you,
Should have
Mr. Mayor,
been
we have a
done.
current,
Assessed and not being able
Well,
to
it
use.
should have been
we
done.
have a current motion on the table, which is 1, 2, 3 as written up on the screen there. There would need to be an amendment to the motion via a point 4 that adds this,
Yeah.
the
I'm
idea
happy
of
to
a,
make that amendment.
and then that would have to be,
As
supported by
a
the
seconder
seconder.
of the
Yeah.
motion, I'm happy to
And then that can then
second the
become the motion.
amendment.
Well, you can just make a point 4 in your
Yeah,
amendment.
yeah, point 4 is basically that council
Without-
initiate a WH. It's
Workplace
audit
health and
on
safety audit.
the cattle yard facility on the proposed 3-run.
Can you put a time limit on it?
Well, we're looking
When
at
they
12
can,
months.
when they can do it.
Within
You've got
a certain
COVID and everything like that, like you won't get them out of Sydney for God knows how long.
I think if we stick with the 12 months, it's a period of time for what we might have to do and what we need to consider. And
We just don't want it to be a piece of string, the way it's been.
no. Councillor McCracken.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I have a concern regarding liability and security, and we're liable for that. If those cattle yards were a piece of council plant, we wouldn't be using it. And even though, and council plant is used by council staff, we have no control over who accesses those yards. We have trucks that pull in there and unload, if we've got stock down, we have no control over who goes in or out. My concern is that we're going to spend $230,000 on another 12 months of making a decision, which I think, it's just going to prolong the inevitable. And is there a number of cattle that we have to have through those yards? I mean, we want to see if they're viable go for another 12 months, spend $230,000 getting them to a standard that they can be used.
Can I just, where's the 200,000?
Where's
$200,000 to get it to
No,
work
that's not.
safety standard.
We don't
No,
know
don't-
that.
don't know that.
Over to the gentleman.
Just to clarify for councillors' minds, firstly, the cattle yards have not been closed by council. Council signalled its intention by its November resolution, and then subsequently in the resolution to adopt for public consultation the strategy. It signalled an intent to close, and which is option 4. The current cattle yards are still open and able to be used by the lessee. Just unfortunately, there hasn't been many sales due to numbers. Now, the other thing that I think should be clarified is there could be an investment of $30,000 or there could be an investment of $200,000, and you will get essentially more with the 200,000 than you would with the 30. In terms of to get the council, the cattle yards up to the Australian standard and eliminate any WH&S issues would be in the order of 200,000, whereas the 30,000 might make some repairs and do some maintenance on the cattle yard, just to get it a bit more, I suppose, aesthetically pleasing and a bit more functional. But just in terms of the investment of a smaller amount would not necessarily solve all of the WHS issues
100%.
according to the Australian standard.
Will identify it.
Yeah, it could. But I just thought I'd just clarify that
That's right,
because
I'm not saying that's.
the cattle yards have not been closed.
No.
And in terms of if this resolution was to go through, was to be adopted by council, the cattle yards would still remain open. And so that just needs to be understood by councillors.
Councillor McAllister.
So my understanding of what you guys over there just agreed to around the mayor's suggestion of getting a report, that won't cost 250,000 and it won't cost, well, it may cost 30, but so essentially we're going with, let's get the report, let's find out where we sit and let's not put any dollar numbers on it. Okay?
That's it's a separate
Yeah.
exercise,
Yeah,
because we don't know what the numbers are.
So let's get the report first so that we all know where we sit. And then we can talk about the dollars.
And in the
That's
meanwhile,
right.
they're
And in
free
the
to
interim,
keep using
they can
the
have a crack at trying to
yards.
get the facility going and using a 3-run facility
Yeah, I
instead of
know,
a
but you know,
2,000.
what was happening in 2010 when the lease was given out? You know?
Don't look back, Norm.
That's-
Look forward.
That's my challenge.
Look, through you, Mr Mayor, looking forward, is there a number of cattle we have to have through the yards to make it viable? And is that, like you're saying, give it 12 months? I mean,
That's
you've got to have a figure that says, right, we're not going to make it, it's over, or yes, we've got enough cattle to keep it going. So, I mean, that's the thing, you can
But
say 12 months, let's see how it goes, but you just got to have,
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor, I would hope that the users committee would be able to formulate that and get a good working group together and say, look, let's work a strategy out. We've got 12 months to make this work. Let's put some numbers around it and see if we can make things, and that can come back to council with it. It could be I don't know, they might have to meet monthly for the first 3 months to get things going.
and
it
the issue
comes
with that
under
is
the
if it doesn't
lease.
rain and there's no cattle, well, there's going to be no sale. So, I mean, it's just, but that's, you're sort of basically giving another 12 months to something that, if it's a boomer of a year, you might have a heap of cattle through there and then have none for 10 years. Like
But
it's,
it might just be a manageable facility then with 3 runs to make it work. And so we don't have to go and spend the millions of dollars, which we thought, because it is a big facility if we look at the whole footprint. But if we kind of scale it down and say, right, and look, if the whole world changes and there's a boom in the cattle market, well, may have a facility there to expand it. You go to 5 runs. Who knows?
But that's down the track.
That's right.
And it may come under the terms of the lease, when you renegotiate the lease, as Councillor McCullum said, we might need to have a better look at the way the lease was set out in the first place to make it more viable for council. Don't just rely on the cattle
The
sales.
12-month period gives you a chance to get a proper lease in place instead of something that.
Something a bit more favourable to
Yeah,
everybody.
just
Just a comment. Just want to know, Mark, since our last walkthrough 2 weeks ago, has the leasee been approached to clean it up, the facility?
Through Mr Mayor, so we approached the lessee before that. I've had another inspection and it doesn't look like there's been too much done with that.
Are we able to enforce?
Sorry?
Are we able to enforce it?
Yes, yeah. So I'll now have a follow-up meeting, because I told him originally we'd have a follow-up meeting, and at that one I'll address that there hasn't been any work done. So
Well, the only
that's part
reason,
of the normal, should be part of the normal lease management, which is something we're picking up again. So
well, I'm sure the agents probably want to have it cleaned up if there's going to be a sale in a month's time anyway. If there is a sale.
I went for a drive this morning and the laneways seem to have been cleaned, but everything else is still needing a lot of work.
But I can understand from the lessee's point of view, why go out and do something if there's nothing certain?
Yeah, but he should have that ready,
It's not in the document.
going for
Yeah.
if there is a sale.
Is what he should be doing on a monthly basis, fortnightly basis?
yeah,
Is the detail there?
yeah. So in terms of the lease, it's
Because I'm using the acre one, that's
Yeah.
pathetic.
It's more of an overall, but they need to maintain the yards in a suitable condition that sales can happen. So the discussion we had with him last time was, well, if he was notified of a sale in 2 weeks, he could.
Well, why don't
Get
we
it
just
for
tell
you.
him there's going to be a sale, and if they defer it, well, so be it.
Thank you, Councillor Mick. So
Hasn't happened the last 10 years. Nick.
that's
Well,
what I've told him, is that it can get into a bit of a chicken and the egg scenario, and to break that, council has given him the direction that he has to have the yards in a condition that a sale could occur, whether a sale or not, but it brings the facility back up to where we would see it, in that the facility should be kept under the maintenance requirements in the lease.
well, it's just like a tractor. If your tractor's got a flat tire, you're not going to wait till you use it. You need it going now in case.
It might be a bit wet and paddock.
Councillor
It's possible.
Through you, Mr Mayor, just one other point regarding the liability. If we're going to upgrade or get 3 runs available, can we reduce the liability of council, not close the rest of the yard, but limit access to the rest of the yard?
Mark's nodding his head, and I think that.
So that's what I mean.
if we go
My
that
biggest
far-
concern is the liability
Yep.
issue. And people, unauthorised people accessing the yards, and if we can't control that, we have got an issue. However, if we're going to have 3 runs operational, that's good. Let's restrict public access and unauthorised access to the rest of the yards.
And that's what the user group can do for council, is to establish some parameters about operation.
And that could be potentially an avenue to go to state government with and say,
Yes.
look, we've got a big old facility here, it's a risk there, we want to diverse out of the size of it, but we want to concentrate on this. We've got a local member that she's really buoyant about so she might have to see where she can do a final hours and what she can do.
Any further questions or
So
comments?
what's the resolution look like now? It's 1, 2 and 3.
And
And
four.
we've added 4.
And 4, which is go and get a report.
Council
on-
initiated complete WHS report on the 3 cattle runs.
Yeah, right, no money attached.
Really, the 30,000, I think, is just if something has to be done.
Well, I need to few bit of paint, like it's a tidy, for general tidy. At
Just
least
the
in my-
signage.
Well, it is.
I'm having difficulty with the 30 grand because we just plucked it out of the air.
Actually, only paint something just before you sell
We'll just look through the language of the amendment, just to make sure it's clear, if I can, through you. Council defer the decision to divest and close the cattle yards and not adopt the strategic plan for 12 months. To reform new user committee, should that be form new?
Reform.
Yeah, reform. User committee.
As opposed to reforming them.
Like new.
Form.
It would be
Form a
better,
user,
All right, yeah.
form a user committee.
yeah, just form a committee.
Yeah. We've got to work some terms of reference around it and everything.
Well, when the lease came in, because the change, there was council run and then lease, so that previous committee was disbanded, so it would be better just to say form a new.
Right, form.
Form new, form.
And,
user
and
committee.
maybe work new terms of reference.
Item 2, form.
Form user committee to assist council and the new leaseholder to improve the facility.
Well,
Could that be improve the cattle yards or to?
well, I think there'll be a whole extremity of it, because they're going to be the users of the whole facility.
Yeah, just want to make sure we're clear with the language so that it's
Yeah.
easy to be understood later when it's looked at as a resolution.
That needs to be changed.
Council, form, take the new out.
Are we including the truck wash in this? Because that's all part of the,
Complex.
Yeah.
and I've had an issue in the past with having it all as under one umbrella. I think they should be looked at individually because they're very different facilities. So I'm getting a little confused now about,
I think
the
we should-
report we got was about the whole facility. But most of the discussion we've had is about the cattle sale yards, and I'm just not sure exactly what we.
Well, unless you want
And
to exclude the truck wash out of
If we're going to have WorkSafe come out, we may as well look
yeah, the whole,
into
the whole
look over the
facility.
whole lot
Yeah,
Yeah.
and put them into 3 categories. And you'll have a certain parameters for the sheep yards, we'll have a certain parameters for the truck
You're
wash,
shutting the lot down.
and a lot of parameters for the cattle yards.
Yeah.
Right, then you know where we stand. Instead of, look, sitting at this table, there's 5 people that haven't got stock.
Who?
Oh,
Yes, no, dog is not stock.
and so, look, you know, let the experts come and tell us what we should be doing.
Where you
Yeah.
user is.
Might be better
Can,
if
Mr.
we
Mayor,
go
through you, oh, sorry.
just to suspend standing order so there can be a more fluid discussion, because that seems to be.
Well, I think we're at the end of the discussion already.
Yeah.
I think
Mm.
we're
Can-
very comfortable with
can
the
I-
way forward.
Semantics, we don't want another committee, just a user group, please.
Oh, yes. From our previous experience.
It's up to the mover and seconder.
Yeah, well, it was
The
user group.
user group is fine.
Improve, will we say the whole facility? Or the
Or the selling complex.
So-
sale yards and cattle.
Leave the truck.
You don't have to have the truck wash.
Item 3, I still have difficulty with a number. Can we just change that to council look to invest in the scaling down to 3 runs?
His motion.
Invest in scaling down.
Like I have difficulty with a number that's just been plucked out of the air.
Yeah, we don't want to be held to that 30K, do we?
Yeah, well, the council allocate sufficient funds to
Implement
implement
the,
the three.
implement the recommendations from the WHS
Yeah,
report. Oh,
that's-
okay, that's a lot of money.
I don't think, no, I don't think you want to do that.
Okay, great.
No, I just think just to,
We just want to make it look
just, yeah,
better.
that's right.
Council, just be general, council investigate
Yeah, well, yeah.
scarring down of the cattle yards to straight up to 300 head. That's the base premise.
Okay.
No, that's true, right?
No,
Allocate
sufficient
sufficient
funds.
funds
Yeah,
to
right.
scaling down.
Through Mr Mayor, we can, if that was put up without a figure, we then come back in a workshop to the councillors to give details around the
And
costs.
by that stage,
involved.
you'll have a years of group working and they might be able to kick some money into.
Yes, I'm happy to.
You happy with that? The mover and the seconder?
Yes,
So it should be council investigate scaling down to a 300 head of cattle capacity. Is that what we're saying?
3 run,
3 run, 300 head.
300 head, 3 run facility.
So what do you put through 3 runs?
Investigate the scarring.
You take the 2 out.
Councillor McAllister.
Well, I'm sorry, I'll ask. How many cattle can you put through in 3 runs?
I thought you said 100 roughly a run.
Yeah, so per lane, if I'm allowed to speak.
Yeah, no, please, Leslie.
So per lane capacity would be, it's 200 a lane, but to represent the cattle properly is about 100 per lane, which is 2 sides, which is 20 pens. So you could ramp that up, no drama, in the 3 lanes.
Okay.
And item 4 is there, which is the WHS report. Now, we've got to that stage. Any further questions or comments? And I heard what you said before, Ash, but I thoroughly agree that the initial process of this was done not into the level that I thought it should be done. But we're there now. Further questions or comments? I've given you a lot of latitude here. Councillor Crabb.
You've got 2 4s now,
Oh, where am I?
because you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 at the bottom, and then you've got 4, 5, 6, 7.
still at the top.
Oh, the recommendation.
So that,
That 4 will have to be.
Through Mr Mayor,
5.
we'll adjust the numbers to
adjust
be
the
the 0.3 on the original recommendation will reflect 0.5. And then subsequently after that, it'll be 6, 7, 8, and 9.
Please don't ask me to form.
No, that's.
You'll be right. Nicole.
you picked a really bad day.
All right, we've got all that set, and really what, through the whole process is we're putting the time frame out so that we can at least find out exactly what the way it should be forward. And if it doesn't work out on the positive, there's been no harm.
Yep.
You know. So moved and seconded. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you.
To 10.7, I believe.
10.7, we're up.
Straight up the front.
Through Mr Mayor, this is the monthly development services report, which outlines the activity around DAs and building certificates plus enforcement activities. Not too much more to add, but note that the value of investment in the community in development as at the end of June was 8.5 million, and the total for 2020 was 9.05 million. So we've seem to be tracking at a doubling of our investment through the year. Not our investment, but community's investment in development.
You want to move to that?
Is move the recommendation.
Yeah,
Note
I'm
the
happy to
report,
second.
moved by councillor McAllister,
I'm happy
seconded by
to second.
councillor Bull. Any questions or comments on that report? Silence is golden. All those in favour? Carried. 10.8. Airport.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report is in regard to the airport runway reconstruction project. Council reviewed this project at its workshop, not last workshop, but the workshop before, regarding the funding and challenges with obtaining funding from the state government for the project. And if no funding was available from that source, reducing the scope in the project from $5 million for an extension and strengthening down to $3.5 million to maintain the existing length of the runway and still undertake strengthening, but not to the original extent. So included in the report is just an estimate of costs for the $3.5 million scope for the project, as well as discussion regarding the funding, especially in terms of the existing federal government funding. At the moment, the agreement of the funding offer is 50% of the project cost up to a total provision from the federal government of $2.5 million. And in moving forward with the reduced scope would involve discussions with the federal government around securing that $2.5 million amount for the project, thereby leaving 1 million, or if the federal government keeps its requirement of 50% funding, there'll be 1.75 million in funding, with 1.75 from council. The recommendation also includes from the recommendation from the 16th July 2020 meeting regarding borrowing for council's portion of the grant funding.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McAllister.
In the report, like I think I was at that workshop, and we were talking about the specs on the runway, and I reckon we sort of talked about going back to a 15 because that would accommodate most aircraft that would possibly ever come to Denny.
Yep.
Now, I see in this report that we've gone out to a 20.
Yep.
So I would like to know the rationale of how he got from 15 to 20.
Through you, Mr Mayor, thanks Councillor McAllister. So following the workshop, we had a discussion at the airport users meeting and highlighted the recommendation around going to a PCN of 15. The feedback from the meeting was they were happy with the reduction in length, but encouraged council to maintain the PCN of 20. We're going to manage that through the design and documentation to get the designers to work out what is required for a 15 and a 20. It might be that big increase, to see what costs are involved in those two options. So that's where we're sitting at the moment.
So what was the reasoning behind going to a 20? Is that for an aircraft that might turn up to Deniliquin that a 15 couldn't accommodate?
Yes, around that, and around that in the future for works, any future works, if funding became available to to extend the runway would be much simpler to do. So going from 1,200 to 1,400 metres in the future would be a lot simpler to do rather than going from a strength of 15 up to 20. That'd be pretty well rework the exact same project, the same work that we're doing at the moment. So again, around future use and aircraft that may use it, and also if for future projects, if future funding was received.
So roughly, what's the difference between a 15 and 20?
Oh, you're on our audit risk committee.
That will come through. I think we're at a time where that's got to go through the design process rather than trying to come up with it. But we're definitely talking to the designers around both those options, and we'll get that difference.
So can we have that in the resolution somewhere? Because at the moment, I read the resolution as only being a 20.
I've got what's the current status of the runway? I know it's old and decrepit, but is it 15? Is it 20? Is it 5? 4.
Oh.
Yeah. So we even going to a 15.
It's
so it's a 4. Council council staff on behalf of council give pavement concessions for larger aircraft. We've been in the past giving concessions for aircraft that have a aircraft classification number, so pretty much the same number, up to about 10. Now that's a one-off, mainly around the muster, because the larger acts always fly in and monitor that very closely. So we've already got usage up to that amount, and so 15 is definitely within the realm of where future usage of the facility would be. 20 is starting to go a bit further. Both ways are a significant improvement. As say 15, between 4 and 15, a significant improvement on what there is there now.
And we've been trying to find a way forward with the reneging by state government of the funding agreement, verbal funding agreement they had. And that's why we looked at all these options.
Yeah, I know, but on that point of, I don't know what Pete's going to talk about, but on that point of 15 to 20, you know, like at the moment, you know, we got one that's 4, but we give exemptions for a 10 to land, okay, for one-off. I presume that's how it works. So if you build a 15 and you get the one-off of a 20 turning up, it's, you know, you can sort of tick the box, but let's find out what the difference is. I'll shut up now.
Councillor Crabbe.
Yeah, look, the airport's operational at the moment. Well, it is. We know the runway needs replacing in the next 5 years. We had a commitment we have a commitment from the federal government of $2.5 million.
We've got their money.
We had a commitment from the state of 2.5, which they didn't come up with. So the $5 million project, we scaled back to 3.5. Council's not in a position to borrow money. We're not going to make any money from this, whereas I'm happy to support council borrowing money where we're going to make some money. So why do we need to do it at all until the state kicks in the rest of the money? But basically it was going to be a $5 million project that cost council nothing.
It's going to cost
Now we've gone from borrowing 2.5 million to borrowing 1.75. We can't, like, in my opinion, we can't afford to do that. And I'm sure if we went to the state government in 3 years' time and said, we've got to shut the airport because you won't give us the money, they'll give us the money. We are still getting the air ambulance coming in there now, and that is the main thing we need to come in and out of this airport. It's still happening today. So I'm just not sure why we're deciding to go and borrow 1.75 million.
Can I just ask a question around what's the parameters around that federal funding timeframes? Because if I don't think we'll be able to wait through.
We've already missed some milestones within the federal funding grant agreement through Mr. Mayor, which is why we need to be encouraging continuation of the project to try and keep it going. In terms of the question around the PCN you know, I suppose we're looking for design of 20, but if we can't afford it within 3.5 million, we'll do what we can afford to do. The issue here is that we don't have any subsequent commitment or agreement that anything will come from the state government. So council essentially has to hand the money back or try and work a solution which doesn't cost it as much as $2.5 million, which is why the recommendation's there. Council could decide to approach the federal government and talk about we haven't got the money, and you know, could we deliver it all for $2.5 million? That's also an option for council, but we would get a less scope of works within the current design. So essentially, there's council's options. Our recommendation is to sort of get that middle ground. Hopefully, the best case scenario for council is that the federal government agrees for council to use all of the $2.5 million, which means that it would cost council $1 million. And the worst case scenario is they say, no, it's a 50-50 proviso for the federal government grant, therefore you must contribute 50%, and we contribute 50%, in which case that would be 1.75. In council's budget, it did make allowance to borrow. Now, hang on, I better just check that.
Yeah,
So it's made allowance to
it's
borrow.
not in,
Yeah, yes. It's made allowance to borrow in terms of borrowing costs. But obviously that's a decision the council needs to make.
Councillor McGuinness.
I think if you read the master plan of the Temora Airport, where they're actually done the 20s and the 15s and whatever's, I think they might have gone a bit further than 20, I think. You read the basis of that report, and it pretty much says that all regional airports run at a loss, and essentially will never run at a profit, will never wash their face or whatever. So I would be using that report, and they've done it pretty well, to actually go to the feds and just say, look, you know, here's one of the icon sites within Australia that's got a museum around. It's got, you know, it's got a fair bit of backing from a private enterprise group, the whole thing, and they still can't make this an airport bloody run, you know, to cover its costs. So I would be stressing to the federal government that it's a regional service that we have to, well, it's a sub-regional service that we have to provide. And, you know, I'd be looking for the $2.5 million to fund a lower scope airport, because there's not an airport in regional Australia, like in sub-regional Australia, that actually runs and covers the costs. So it's more than a service that we have to provide. It's a service that the state and federal government have to provide as well.
Councillor Fogarty.
I agree. It's an essential service to have the airport operational. We need to be able to get air ambulances in here efficiently and effectively. We also need to be mindful that this is the airport that's closest to the forest, which is a significant infrastructure within our community and needs to be preserved and maintained. And should a fire erupt in that forest, this is the only facility that would be able to accommodate sufficient aircraft to extinguish that fire. And I think we just need to keep pushing. You and I have had some discussions with the General Manager about the next steps that we can take in terms of going back to the state government. I think we need to push ahead with that. But in the meantime, I think we've got a recommendation here that can help to move the process forward. And I think we need to move on that recommendation.
Thanks, Councillor.
And I'd like to move the recommendation.
Moved by Councillor Fogarty. We've got a seconder for that before we continue our discussion.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councillor Hall. Any further questions?
I was at that users meeting, and the argument was pretty strong from a couple of well-experienced kind of people in the area, the industry or ex-industry people, that the 20 would be a long-term the way to go, but again, we've got to make it fit into our long-term financial plan. Yes, there's always an issue with borrowing, but I see it again as the airport is a facility that the next generation will be able to use as well. And again, it's one of these ones where, yeah, we can close it and then have no airport facility at all. But I don't think that's the answer.
Any other questions or comments? We've got the motion B with recommendation, which has been moved and seconded. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against?
Aye.
Please note Councillor McAllister and Councillor McCrabb are against the motion. The permit carried. Tim.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is the monthly operations department update, highlighting works undertaken throughout the council area for the May, June period leading up to the meeting here. So highlighting roadworks, water and sewer, weeds, waste and fleet. One of the questions from the last report was just in regard to the car key program, whether the council still undertakes some sort of car key weed management. So the response I got back from operations is that council does still undertake a program. At the moment, the program still seems centred around in and around the Deniliquin area. I didn't get too much information around whether that is sort of a wider area of car key control. So I'd be happy to talk to councillors regarding concerns in that in the area with car key and whether that program needs to be increased or reduced. So council receives some funding for that and also provides some funding itself for the program. Items, I think there with the road maintenance and the graders. So council had 4 grading teams as well as continuing with some capital construction work. Yeah, just thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Point to that, there's been an adjustment to that recently. So, are we permitted to talk about that?
You can talk about it.
So we've just received word that the contractor who is scheduled for removal of the arrowhead weeds at Waring Gardens in the lagoon has been affected. He's on the Central Coast and has been affected by the COVID lockdown. So as a result, that'll be delayed until approximately August at this stage, but we'll maintain a watch over it. It's just slowing us down reasonably as it's affected all of his other clients as well. And we're sort of on the list there in a priority.
So through you, Mr Mayor, are we able to still contain that in that one lagoon area, not spread between the others?
Yes, Councillor McAllister, keep a close watch on making sure it doesn't go outside of the Waring Gardens lagoon.
And I think we've also looked at other options that might be available instead of just trimming it all off. One of them is to lower the water and hit it with some stuff that
We're not leaving it.
I'm happy to move, Mr Mayor.
moved by Councillor McCrabb. For the second, Councillor Betts. Any further comments on the operations department update?
What happened there? I'm really not good at this, am I?
You get it. Betts, no further comments. All those in favour? Against? Carried. 10.11 is the major projects program.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So the update on the progress for the major projects program. This is the grant funding that council's received over the past few years, and we're still continuing to 2021, 22 as a highlight of the projects. A couple there to point out, during the week we've had discussions with the contractor, the Town Hall. So concerns raised through the Project Control Board on completion of the works. The contractor has advised that and has submitted a program for completion of the Town Hall and the States Building, Civic Building works by the end of December, which is has been reported before. We just wanted to ensure that in talking directly with the contractor that he was still on board to do that. It said the main issue regarding that is just the supply of structural steel, which we understand is now very close, if not on site. So once that comes, and that's mainly around in the Town Hall, there's a significant amount of steel to support, to open up areas and that, and we agree with the contractor to not undertake any of that work until we physically have the steel there, rather than do the work and have it sit just with temporary pinning. So highlighted that the work for the plaza area will go into January to the end of January. So that's the current updated information from the contractor for that, and we'll keep council advised. Very high.
So no, that was December. I wasn't
December.
sure. December.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So we've had that information from them for a while. We just wanted to, given that December's coming up and there still is, especially in the Town Hall, significant work, but it was adamant that he keep to that keep to that
Pretty
program.
firm with that date too.
Yeah. No, with the meeting with the Project Control Board, it couldn't have been asked any clearer or simpler around the completion date, or answered any clearer or simpler. So, but that's something will need to be managed. And the works down at Memorial Park been progressing well, and they'll be completing in the next month. So, yeah, the next month or so with that. Council staff have also met with users from Memorial Park around the showground stimulus funding, where council received $1.6 million with that. So, and we're undertaking a review of the strategic plan for Memorial Park at the moment, talking with the user groups around that, and then part of that is also the expenditure of that money. So further information will be sort of going up to the next user group, which will be happening in the coming weeks, around the expenditure for that one, ensuring that it meets the strategic plan requirements and the users' needs.
Have we got a timeline requirement on that 1.6?
I'd have to take that on notice. There will be a time frame on it. Yeah, still not aware of that, so I'll take that on board and get that out.
Councillor McAllister.
How about that fence, Mark? How are we going with that fence?
Still on it.
That's where we get the
Ordered and
30,000.
being supplied. Absolutely.
That's what
Eh?
we've got 30,000 with that.
Did it?
They're not doing it, they're putting in the sale yards.
We're using the money from the fence to do the sale yard, sorry.
Well, how about you relocate the sale yards along there? It'd be better than what's there already. So.
It's that 1.6.
You put 'em in the Edward River
It's a
Road.
great opportunity to get
Fence
more
pretty.
Nice and picket.
to extend it. Should be. We've got priorities on it. What's going to, like the toilet block replacement is, it's pretty ordinary, I think. And, it would be up the high on the list.
So the funding is for roadworks, the toilet block replacement for the block, P&A block just behind the main building, and also for the change rooms next to the DNA. So it's something that, that the council with the youth group need to work through in terms of the work that's been happening and what council has funded, and then what this funding is for, as well as the other areas, because there's a little bit of a double up in funding. So we're just going to go there to work it through to say same amount, extend existing projects.
Right, thanks, Mark. Now, any further
Just
questions?
one
Councillor
query,
Hall?
I just see there's a bit of talk about the Blighty pub colour.
Yes,
And there's a big survey going on that no one likes the colour.
that's correct.
Just want to know, if they change the colour, we won't be footing the bill, will we?
No,
As far as I'm concerned,
I want to know.
the process was followed with the
I
two
think they
people
like the
who owned it.
pumpkin either.
I don't think the,
You haven't taken it over, have you?
Very nice, actually.
Oh, shots fired.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Oh, there's a new one. I didn't even know there was a new colour.
I think he started it.
Probably we can't pour a beer out.
so he's got that.
He started the social media. blue, I think.
All right, that's the major, thanks very much, Mark, for July. Progress report, someone like to move that report to accepted, councillor Paul moves, seconded by councillor Vince. All those in favour?
Right.
It is carried. Now that brings us up to confidential matters, so I'll ask someone that we move out of council, because we still have to come back into the sale yards item. We move out of council and into confidential council, moved by councillor Hall, seconded by councillor Crab. All those in favour? It is carried. We might have 5 minutes.
Over there, Kenny. Kenny. Touch that green button.
Yes, go on here. We're good.
Yep.
We Okay.
Are we on?
Yeah, we're back.
Oh, gosh, we've got some
We're on,
space.
back in the general council. I'll just read out the items that we held in confidential council. That was item 13.1, which is the youth muster outstanding debts. The recommendation that was approved was that the council receive and note the report. And item 2, authorise and write off bad trade debt amounting to 7,226 that is unrecoverable in accordance with clause 2133 of the local government regulations. Item 13.2 was the appointment of a code of conduct review panel. And the recommendation was that the council notes the outcomes of the expression of interest process conducted by the joint organisations on behalf of the member councils and appoint the following recommended 6 organisations as members of council's conduct review panel for a negotiated period of 4 years. And those panels are local government legal, Moray and Agnew lawyers, BAL lawyers, SIC Solutions, Centium and Workwise. And item 13.3 is a minor organisational structure, and the recommendation was that the council endorse the organisational structure as detailed in attachment 1. That completes the confidential council, and we'll go back to general council and item 10.6, which is the Denny Plain the Planners Festival Memorandum of Understanding.
Mr Mayor, thank you. So this is a matter that was deferred from the last meeting in June, based on some questions around some treatment of what have been raised as debts in council finance system. That's since been resolved in the confidential part of the meeting. So this is the recommendation to approve the 2021 to 23 memorandum of understanding between Edward River Council and the Denny Plain the Plains Festival, and also authorises the general manager to provide written confirmation to Denny Plain the Plains to enact the MOU. There's been some minor adjustments to the wording in the MOU, and that is to clarify the treatment of in-kind contributions and what they're under and how much is contributed every year, and they are for the public to see on page 67 of the agenda. Other than that, I'm to answer any questions that councillors may have.
Moved by councillor Metcalfe. Seconded.
No, I'm.
Can't see his lips.
Oh. I'm happy to second that.
Moved by councillor McAllister, seconded by councillor Wolf. Any questions or comments?
Yes.
Yep.
Councillor McGrath.
The complimentary tickets that we get, corporate and general admission, add up to over $15,000. We should get those. So is that appropriate?
Yeah.
Is the first question. And when we're making a cash contribution of 25, should we be looking at not taking the tickets and making a cash contribution of 10?
Just to answer the question in terms of whether it's appropriate, I don't believe it's inappropriate because those corporate tickets are issued as part of a sponsorship arrangement. It's not unusual for there to be some sort of reciprocal benefit to both, and there is more than just the tickets. There is website marketing, etc., and presence of Edward River Council, and particularly the Visit Denny brand within the both festivals. I'm more than happy to confirm that via some legal advice, and because those Plain the Plains Festival tickets would be issued to the organisation of Edward River Council rather than to individuals, it's not necessarily a gift, and you can utilise those tickets to invite prominent members of the community and or have councillors attend to represent Edward River Council at that event, as is appropriate for council to be seen to be supporting those events.
And that's, I concur there, because that's something that's been brought up numerous times before, that there are always some dignitaries there that council should be seen to be talking to these people and supporting the event at the event. Just to say, no, we're not going to go because I think that's an issue.
No, I absolutely think we should have a representation at the chairman's luncheon or whatever the opening thing is when the dignitaries are there. However, they're seldom there after that. And that is council's opportunity to, you know, particularly for the mayor and GM and deputy mayor to be at those things. However, it's more about, you know, general admission tickets and whatever that I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, I know that, you know, in days gone by, the Conago Council used to go to the Cat Factory in Melbourne, but now you can't even be seen to receive a jacket from Caterpillar when you get delivery of a grader.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering in the governance space how this sits.
Chime in, it's addressed in our code of conduct. It's around receiving of gifts and benefits. The key point is around the acceptance, especially of tickets. So something like out to the Ute Muster, that you're doing it, that you're attending in your capacity as a councillor or as an employee. So that's where the attendance would be deemed to fit within our code of conduct. Outside of that, it probably wouldn't.
Right.
So to add to that, there's an expectation that if it's a councillor who receives a ticket, they will be wearing the badge and there is an official capacity as a councillor, or if it's a staff member, they'd be in uniform if applicable and also wearing the badge, definitely representing the council. In terms of your analogy with a corporate, it's a little more nuanced with the corporate because you would otherwise be maybe seeking to procure those goods and services from that, or they would be looking for your business. And so it's a different sort of, needs to be considered differently from a corporate to what is essentially a not-for-profit here and a well-supported event by council.
Question? Just on the in-kind on 2.2, so if the Ute Muster doesn't proceed with us this year, next year, whatever, so does that 75K give or take 20% roll over to the next year they get access to, or is it wiped?
I can answer that. Note the last paragraph saying costings for the in-kind support will be determined by council and based on the actual costs of labour, plant and materials. Therefore, the underlying message in that is if the event did not proceed, there would be no requirement to incur those in-kind expenses and therefore no requirement to incur to basically deliver those to the whichever festival it is. And noting past practice where it didn't, the Ute Muster did not occur in 2020 based on the COVID lockdown. Any further use of that money that was set aside in the budget would need to be a decision of the council, such as what happened in 2020. So, long story short, they would not be entitled to that in-kind contribution.
Oh, funny.
We're up to the MOU on the plan of flow. Seconded.
I second it.
Yep. Any further questions on the MOU?
Oh, it's just a comment, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for my little interlude. Look, I think it's on, I'll just get my notes, page 66. So it talks about 2 festivals and I wonder if the word annually should be added in there. Because the way it is, the way I read it was those two festivals could be at any time.
So that, just to clarify,
Um,
councillor Fogarty, on page 66,
Yeah,
under partnerships.
it's in part of the recitals,
Yeah,
but I just wondered if the word annually should be added there.
Edward River Council will provide annual financial and in-kind support to Denny Play and the Plains Festival Limited to support the following two events, Denny Viewmaster and Play and the Plains. So it's got annual in there, I'm not sure if that sort of clarifies it.
You're on a different page. You're on the front
Page 66, under point 2, there's a.
Yeah, if you go up to point 1 in the recitals, that was where, just for clarity, where it just says to ensure 2 safe and successful events can be delivered annually. I
Okay.
thought would be better.
Thank you. Thanks for the clarification. I don't think that will be a problem.
Any further questions or comments? Moved and seconded. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. With that, I declare the council meeting for July closed. Thank you very much.
General business?
Yes?
Good.
Did you restream us, Nicole?
Beg your pardon?
Did you restream us?
Yeah, the camera here.
So we need to
Turn
go
it
on.
off.
Turn off the stream.
Yeah, just a minute.
Before you start saying.
Not going to wait for next
Whoop.
general business?
No, never waits. It's not important.
I'll clear that up.
Thirty wants to get around here and sit closer so you can hear.
Hey?
I'll get closer to hear.
No pressure.
Oh, no pressure.
Yeah.